welcome back, everybody. It's Open World Chat. I'm your host, John Odom, and I'm here with Mark Card. Mark,
Howdy.
yeah, that's Mark for you. Howdy, he's back there. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing okay. Uh, we're talking about interesting things, and that works for me. I like talking about interesting things, and something just popped into my head.
Oh, an
So
interesting
the
thing, I hope.
the 18th century saw a giant leap in philosophical progress because of the effect of salons in discussing Enlightenment philosophy.
Hmm.
And what popped into my head is that not in all cases, but in many cases, podcasts are the new salons.
Ooh, by which we do not mean hair salons, oh friendly listeners.
No, no, we mean a place where friends and even rivals come together to discuss interesting topics of the day.
Right, on.
And that this is one of the ways that Enlightenment philosophy, which is the dominant philosophy, not capitalism, the dominant philosophy which affected the founding fathers, considering yesterday was July 4th, which affected the founding fathers in turn in determining not just the political economy of our system in America, but the philosophical underpinnings of our system. If you want to spread democracy, this might be a good way to do it through podcasts, which are the modern salon. And now I just sound silly.
No, not at all, because now we are about to dive into one of the modern salons of, well, no, I'm stretching the metaphor too far. But
All
anyways,
right, there we go.
we're going to talk about, we've just had, a series of three episodes where we got heavy into, geopolitical, cultural, theological. We just hit it all, by God. We hit it all. So now it's time to step back a little and go back to Star Trek, which also hits it all. What am I saying? I sound like I'm disrespecting Star Trek. But we're going to talk about,
God,
Star
next
Trek as
next you're going to be
a
saying bad things about Buffy and Firefly. Knock it off.
well, I'm gonna knock it off here. It's all relative. We're recording two episodes in a row, so we just finished one of our most highfalutin ones here, and now we're gonna talk about Star Trek. We're gonna, as fans, as big fans, we are going to talk about how Star Trek, which has largely identified itself through a philosophy or a set of philosophies that are very forward looking, that are very positive, that are very inclusive. We're going to talk about those times when those philosophies didn't quite work out, where Star Trek has failed itself. And unfortunately, it happens more often than we'd like to admit.
Yes, it's the whole idea that utopia can't exist.
Yeah, people can't let go. And in fact, I remember watching an interview with Ron Moore where he was saying just that. He was saying like, "Oh, this business of not having money on Earth, yeah, Roddenberry thing, whatever. We're just going to ignore it." I mean, he was very dismissive of Roddenberry stuff, which, when Roddenberry went full Roddenberry in the first, by the motion picture in the first season of Next Generation, he was problematic. But when you're talking peak Roddenberry, which was the original series,
Yeah.
um, that's not fair to. He shouldn't have been dismissed so broadly and so generally by one of the primary creators. And when he had this interview, I will always remember that behind him in his place was one of those lamps where it's like the woman's leg in the high heel.
It's a major award.
Yeah, and the lamp on top, and I was like, all right, you fucking tacky shit. You don't know. But anyway, so that's another. I'm getting off here. But when Star Trek fails itself, um, let's talk about that. And I don't even know how we start.
I know how we start.
How do we start?
The Prime Directive.
Let's start with the Prime Directive, which Star Trek has always been a little confused by.
Well, yeah, uh, 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 some people don't realize that I started my first role on this podcast was as a guest. And 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, John graciously asked me to talk about the Prime Directive in the context of international law.
Oh, that was back in the old Jim Dandino days. Jim, good old Jim. We got to have him back on one of these
Yeah,
days.
we
When we
do
have our
really.
Geek Jeopardy, he's coming back. We got to find somebody who has a chance of matching him.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. Well, actually, that's not true. I do know people, but they don't want to be on a podcast.
I just,
So
what's wrong with them? It's a good
I
podcast.
don't know. It's a good format. I like it, but whatever. It's fine. They're allowed not to like those things.
But
So, and one of the things that I pointed out is that the Prime Directive is only as good as the people, the countries or the star systems or whatever unit you're talking about are willing to follow it.
yeah.
International law only succeeds if all the parties who are signatories follow it. And
Mhm.
let me just say that Star Trek often, especially when it doesn't serve the plot, doesn't follow it. I
Mhm.
mean, there are a bunch of episodes like that, and I don't remember the name of them, but the one where the two systems are Eminiar, and I can't remember the other one, have institutional
Vendikar.
Vendikar, Eminiar and Vendikar, two fighting planetary systems, warring planetary systems, have so desanitized war that, well, if you get a notification from your planetary government that you were killed in a casualty as a casualty of war, you have to go and report to a termination booth.
Right. War is a video game.
Yeah. Uh, well, not even that. War, death as an errand. Oh, well, we've got to go and make sure I do this and make sure I do that, and then I have to report to the disintegration booth.
Yeah.
And under there are pre-warp society, which is the whole justification for, these are the societies you don't get involved in. And I think that was actually added later during the next generation. But the whole pre-warp thing. But
Not
this pre-warp
pre
society,
not pre teleportation though, which was kind of weird.
yeah, I think teleportation would be a much better
Yeah.
reason for that. Anyway, so my point is that Kirk completely violates the Prime Directive in that episode. Just entirely blows it off. Nobody even discusses, hey, should we do this? And there are a number of instances, and I don't think it's just in Star Trek the original series that where that happens, where because it doesn't fit the plot or because it doesn't fit certain character development, you just kind of explain away the Prime Directive.
Yeah. The one that strikes me the most in the original series, and I find it very interesting because I feel like it's what we were seeing play out in what was a Roddenberry episode was Roddenberry's inner conflict on this. The non-interference directive, the Prime Directive, is clearly a response to our involvement in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
It was an anti-Vietnam statement, and yet when
Yep.
we get the episode, A Private Little War, which is the Vietnam, or at least from one perspective, the Vietnam conflict playing out, Roddenberry drops the ball, but he does it in
Yep.
a very self-conscious way. He's basically saying, I don't know. I don't know what we really do. This is, the prime directive is the ideal, but what about it's a situation like this? What about if the Klingons are arming one side? What do we do? I don't have the answers to that. And that's why I find it I don't think it's a very good episode by any means.
You don't
But
like the Mugatu?
yeah, well, you got to like them about to, especially since it appeared in Starfleet Academy. But but it's an episode of Roddenberry dropping his own morality because he doesn't have an answer. And I think that's very interesting.
Well, I think it's very interesting. I also think it's an interesting thing because it's art imitating life.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, let's see, was that second season?
Yes.
Okay. 1967 is the time when you get the biggest protests. And it's because in 1966, the American government lifted the exemption for college students for the draft.
Right.
And so the country is really, really divided, arguably at its biggest division in I think this is the turning point when A Private Little War airs is kind of about the time of the turning point where American society as a whole begins to turn against the Vietnam War in more numbers than they ever have. And I think this is a reflection of that ambiguity. What the hell do we do here?
Yeah.
How can we not do this? But on the other hand, how can we do this? But
So that's
anyway,
yeah,
it's
that's the most interesting example of that to me. And you continue to have examples like that. But you I know I don't want to cut off the conversation about the Prime Directive because it's huge, but just to say that that one really is really the one that stuck with me.
I mean, yeah, and there are a few others. And the thing is, Kirk is uh, when he feels like you need to violate it, he violates it.
Yeah.
There is no conversation. There is no discussion. There is action. And I think, that's what makes Kirk a good captain.
Hmm.
One of the things that makes Kirk a really great captain is if you know anything about leadership, um, the decision-making process is one that you follow a few steps. And once you follow those few steps, you act. Get as much possible information as you can. And then once you've gotten that information, make your decision and don't worry about what happens from there because you can always find some way to alter that decision. You can always find some way to deal with the consequences of that decision.
Yeah.
But at that point, making a decision is far more important than not making one.
Yeah.
And Kirk does that. Kirk follows the basic rules of leadership, which is once you've considered all the possible alternatives, once you've figured out what the best course of action is, stop thinking and do,
Hmm.
because you can deal with the consequences of that at some point down the road. And
Yeah.
at some point, not making a decision becomes much more consequential than actually making one and deciding on what to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
it's
and
interesting
it's worth remembering too that Kirk always found some justification, thin or not, for breaking the Prime Directive. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, you might say it's a rationalization, but it's usually fairly well reasoned. His reason in Private Little War is, look, they're doing it. And if we don't counter it, they're going to go unchecked.
yeah,
So we have to carefully monitor this situation and make appropriate incremental steps. But the problem with that is, of course, the reality of war is that incremental steps often have geometric consequences.
yeah,
And so, but yeah, I mean, I think violation of the Prime Directive, that happens all the way through all Star Trek series, or there's at least the potential to do that. And I think that's one of the most fundamental innovations when you talk about the responsibility of interstellar or intergalactic uh, travel
yeah,
is where do you intervene and where you don't. And so
right.
this is a big betrayal of the ethos of Star Trek. Anytime this happens, even if there's a well-reasoned justification for it, it's a fundamental. Okay, so let's introduce a little TV writing technology. When you develop a series, often the studio will want a Bible of how it looks like, who the characters are, what their backstory is,
Oh
all of the
yes,
elements to the beginning of the story, the beginning of the series. And this is one of the biggest betrayals of the Star Trek Bible.
yeah. Over the years, there's a lot of intentional challenging of us. I can't remember the name of the episode with David Ogden Stiers where the in Next Generation, where the culture commits, members of the culture commit suicide at a certain age,
Hmm.
and he decides to push against it. There was one episode I do remember, and I checked the name, is Dear Doctor, I think, in Enterprise, where Phlox and Archer allow an entire sentient species to die from an illness because helping them might interfere with another species' destiny. That's These are episodes designed to challenge us
Hmm.
on the prime directive. And I appreciate those because it does create a lot of challenges. I don't know. It continues to be. I mean, as late as Enterprise here, obviously I've jumped up a bit. It continues to be an interesting, a fundamental, but also a problematic ethic of Star Trek that it has recognized as such. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, how about this? You want a big ethics question, Tuvix.
Tuvix was presented as a massive ethics question and an extraordinary one. Tuvix, people hate that episode. I love it.
Well, talk about a moral quandary. I mean, we're
Talk
getting off
about
the
it. And
topic
they
a little bit
did
here, but I think the prime directive applies here.
at an
You have a new
individual
you have
level.
a new life form which has never existed before.
Hmm.
And what do? They're not going to have a choice. They have to intervene in some way,
Yeah.
no matter what happened.
Yeah.
They either have to keep Tuvix as a new life form and lose two other people, or do what's best for the ship, which is probably to split them apart.
Yes, presumably. I mean, the question is, have you already lost the two individuals,
Yes.
Neelix and Tuvok? If they're already lost, then, you know, it's a different moral question then. But the idea of bringing them back, I don't know. Here I go. I'm starting to get into it and I'm starting to fall over myself trying to talk about it. But it's a great episode. I am on the side of that is an inspired episode.
Oh well, yeah, they definitely. But I do think that it does call into question the prime directive, because what it does is uh, it takes the macro idea of not intervening in certain societies and focuses it into one person. So it makes the macro micro.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
you accidentally create a new life form out of two other life forms,
What's your
then
responsibility to it?
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So I think one of the things we're going to talk a lot about the goofy ways that Star Trek betrays itself. But I think one of the unintended consequences of that betrayal is just what you said. It allows the series after these betrayals to examine the kind of contradictions which are in Star Trek actively, openly within itself. So
Yeah.
what they're doing is they're taking the real world dilemmas they have and forcing them to focus on those ideas in later episodes. So I think it's really good for the series to do this.
I do too. I think there's a fine line between basically rejecting the ideas of the founder and actually in a very mature way examining them and putting them under the microscope. And I think you have room to do that again because Roddenberry did it himself.
Yeah,
As
oh
we
no.
talked.
And he did it consciously.
Right.
He did it consciously. This is one of the things that we talk about when you're trained in the scientific method, when you're trained in how logic works. One of the most important things they say is you have constantly need to be aware of your own biases, your own assumptions, your
Mhm.
own prejudices. And scientific inquiry and logical training make that easier. So if you see somebody who's actively doing this in kind of an artistic expression, wow, that's even better, I think. And I think what these things forced him to do was forced him to look at the assumptions that he had behind the creation of the series. And it also provides a kind of canvas for the shows which came after that on how to focus on, hey, what are the responsibilities we have here? We're, dealing with other societies and intersecting other societies. And how are we going to do that? What kind of uh, moral, philosophical, ethical framework do we have for doing it?
Yeah. Well,
And
listen to us.
and
Listen to what we've done here. Instead of saying we have come around to these Prime Directive episodes are episodes where Star Trek has failed itself, into saying that this is where Star Trek has challenged itself.
well, failure provides opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, people don't understand science. People think science is this thing, and we're talking about science versus writing here. But people mistakenly think science is, based on its successes. No, no. Science is based on multiple radical common failure. Multiple. What you learn how to do when you are trained in science is fail over and over and over and over and over again. And one of
Mhm.
the things that I think is really cool about people who are honestly pursuing science, no matter if you're looking at human behavior or the nature of the universe, is they know how to deal with failure.
Yes. They
And
may
they
not
understand.
like it, but their profession is failure.
I mean, it is. And it's repeated, persistent, consistent, annoying, horrible failure. But that's the only way you get progress.
It's true.
Those failures tell you where you went wrong. And because you're using science, you know why you went wrong, when you went wrong, and how you went wrong eventually.
Yeah.
And, you may never see that your entire life, but somebody down the road is going to find it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have digressed. But yeah, I think it's
Well,
a good
not really.
springboard for
Somewhat.
doing that. So it's important to point out these failures because they can be used to improve the series.
Yeah. Now, I think the other one that leaps out to me, because you nailed the one that really is the big one, the Prime Directive issue.
Yeah, I probably should have saved that for last, huh?
No, no, I think it made sense to dive right into it. I really do, because it's the it's the elephant in the room. But what I want to talk about is one that is really firmly from the Roddenberry era. The examples I have are from the original series and into that first season of The Next Generation when it was still very much hands-on Roddenberry. And that's how much Star Trek has let women down. And
Oh yeah.
we've talked about women in Star Trek and how it's a very mixed legacy. And that mixed legacy, a lot of it comes right from Roddenberry. Uh,
Yeah.
I wish I could remember where I'd read. I've looked for this and I can't find it, but somewhere I read that if you saw a story or the major, you know, the cage notwithstanding, where that almost stands out as an anomaly, but the ones that were problematic for women tended to be Roddenberry and Freeberger, and
Mhm.
Kuhn and Fontana. You'd see the more progressive
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
characters. But there's a couple. I mean, I still think the Turnabout Intruder, the last episode of the series, and it's an unfortunate last episode because I think it's one of the most sexist episodes of TV I've ever seen, ever. I mean,
Yeah.
the in
Yeah,
the
well, yeah, but I have to tell you, even Next Generation doesn't do well in certain circumstances. I mean, there's the episode where you put uh, Dr. Crusher and uh, um, the ship's counselor, Deanna Troy,
Mhm.
in like aerobic style outfits and they're exercising together.
Yes, the infamous camel toe episode.
Yeah, I mean, uh, all of
Male
those,
gaze.
yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff goes wrong and a lot of things. And I think one of the reasons why this happens is sex sells,
Yeah.
is putting characters in sexual situations and titillating situations gets ratings,
Yeah.
especially when you have sweeps periods. And I think, that this is one of those things that Star Trek learns from. Uh, when Seven of Nine is first introduced in Voyager, it is
Oh,
all about sex appeal.
yes. Oh, yes.
And later they figure out a way for the story to be served, but she's really just kind of uh, presented as this emotionally cold femme fatale. And even later, when they're talking about trying to find when episodes try to figure out who to hook her up with, which character to hook her up with,
Yeah.
there's a good deal of misogyny in those too. But they figured out, hey, you need to make her more integral to the story here. This can't just be about the silver metallic cat suit.
Right.
And they softened her up and they put her in a more comfortable uniform and they really fully developed her character. By Picard, oh my God, she's a great character. She is so good in Picard.
Yeah.
And I wish they had gone on to do that series, that Star Trek Legacy series, because this is another one of those instances where you put a woman in a role that because of her looks you underestimate her acting capability,
Hmm.
but she really inhabits that role by the end of the series. I mean, I don't know who could have played Seven of Nine except Jerry Ryan. And
Right.
I'll tell you the other person who does that, who is really a sneakily good performer, and that's Trisha Helfer in Battlestar
Yeah.
Galactica.
Yeah. She was a model. I think she hadn't done any acting. Um,
But boy, did she grow into that profession.
mm,
She kills that role. She really, really does. And
yeah. Boy, one of the
but
great mysteries to me, though, before we get away, I don't want to get
yeah,
too far away from Seven. Um, I mean, what she had to go through was brutal. The costume
yeah,
they squeezed her into, I mean, she couldn't function in it sometimes. They had to back off.
yeah.
And then the treatment, she received from a coworker who shall not be named, by God. I don't want to trash
Kate
talk
Mulgrew.
anyone. Kate Mulgrew, I wasn't going to call her out, but
I
God,
was.
um,
Mainly
but,
because she's apologized now for all that.
well, that's true. So we can call her out. But Jerry Ryan hadn't left yet, or Jerry Taylor, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so this was done as much under her, presumably under her, control as anyone's, unless that,
Yeah.
maybe we'll find out someday that that's one of the things that drove her out. But I don't know. That's just I I, I can get into all kinds of projection onto what must be going there, but I have no business doing it. But the way Seven was presented, um, you know, was really, I think, shameful.
Yeah. And it was all, like I said, it was all done to sell the show, to increase ratings, to make it survive.
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, it was on the way out.
I mean,
Enterprise.
To Paul, they did the same thing with
I was just mentioning Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exactly the same with T'Pol. There's that whole decontamination air quotes.
Oh God.
It's like, all right, guys, you're just trying to sell the show here. We get it. But later, I think they developed the character very well. Um,
They did. They did. They cared about the character enough to develop.
it's especially, I really love the episode where you find out Vulcans were on the planet long, but trapped on the planet long before anybody realized they were.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. I really like that twist.
Yeah,
It's
that was
almost
fun.
it's almost as good as the twist where it's Quark and Rom and Nog, which crashed in Roswell.
Right. Yeah, that was fun. A couple other episodes I want to mention before we leave the sexism thing. Um, One was Wolf in the Fold from the original
Yeah.
series, where we get this statement. Oh, God, is brutal about how this energy being who feeds on fear goes after women because women have a higher, they feel more fear. They're easier to scare. I forget what the exact line was, but it was like,
Yeah.
oh, it was bad. It was bad.
Well, the interesting thing to me is if that's true, why is it women are more easily scared? The patriarchy.
Right.
The whole system is designed to work against them. So, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not their fault.
Oh, I wouldn't even say that it's true. I think that's
No, I
ridiculous.
wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. I'm just saying that even if it were true, it's because of a system that men set up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. The other one I wanted to mention, that doesn't get mentioned as much, but the first time I saw it, it made me cringe. Is The Naked Now, which is the knockoff episode in Next Generation of The Naked Time,
Right. Yeah.
where they just basically repeat the plot. Not even basically, they do repeat the plot
Yeah.
for The Next Generation, and all the women, Crusher, Yar, Troy, everybody else, the men have various different reactions to this lack of inhibition virus they all get.
Hmm.
They have, based on their characters and their personalities, we're getting insights into their characters and personalities like we did in The Naked Time. Um, but the women, all of the women, they just get horny.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. It's just a male fantasy. The virus hits, and now, cool. Look at this. It
Yeah.
it was gross. It was gross.
Yep. Um, I'm trying to think if there's a lot of that going on in Brave New World.
I don't think so. I
I
think
don't
Brave
think
New
so
World's
either.
doing
I think
okay.
it's kind of the exception.
Yeah,
I really do, because you've got his love interest is a captain.
yeah.
And it's not like she's whining about how they can't be together and can't do anything. She's out there captaining.
Well, you
And
don't get any of that in Discovery either.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I don't see any of that in Discovery either.
Yeah,
So, but I don't know. I just really love Brave New World. So I think it's a great show,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's kind of devolved a little bit, but I think there's always kind of writing creep in every show.
yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I am confident that everyone, I mean, a lot of people felt like this last season was a letdown. We'll see what happens with the next season.
Yeah, I really love the first two seasons of that show. It is just gripping TV. And I love the way, uh, again, this is another actress who you kind of underestimate in the role. I think Rebecca Romaine crushes it as number
She
one.
does. She's great.
I
She's,
mean, people would underestimate her because you see she always played these fluffy roles in everything she's ever done.
hmm
Man, you do not for 1 second doubt that she could be in complete command of a starship.
Yeah.
And I really love the relationship they have developed between the two of them, because Pike absolutely relies on her judgment
hmm
and does not question it, and understands that she fills the role of an executive officer, and that's to always ask the captain, "Are you sure? Is this really what you want to do? Have you thought through this?
hmm
Here's what could go wrong." And that relationship is as tight as Kirk and Spock.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's it's really well developed. It's really strong, and you really believe the bond between those two officers. That is such a great part of that show.
Yeah.
And when she has a fault, when they reveal the flaw in her character, it's because it has nothing to do with anything except she's kept it quiet that she's genetically altered.
Hmm.
Let me ask you this. What's the name of the test about two female characters talking about something other than
Oh,
men?
the Bechdel test.
Yes. Uh, I think Brave New World aces that test.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think there are lots of episodes where you have two women talking about how do we solve this engineering problem? How do we solve this resources problem? It's great. I really, and this is the cool thing when we talk about the way Star Trek has kind of failed itself. You also get to see how they write the ship.
Yeah, you do. And, I want to make sure we mention, since we're on this topic,
Yeah,
there's a couple, you know, Lower Decks has, some great doesn't make any of these problems, right? It's very, um, it's not woke because it's much more non-self-conscious than that. But it doesn't have any of these problems at all either.
no, it
And
really doesn't.
and Prodigy, I don't think Prodigy understands how good it was
Yeah,
because
I didn't get to
Prodigy, in
see
a
any Prodigy.
metaphor, yeah, in a sort of metaphorical way, the last Prodigy episode really punches patriarchy in the face. And
Yeah.
I don't think they realize just how well they did it. And
Well, I'm all for it because I hate the system. What people don't understand about the patriarchy is that it holds men back too.
it does.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And when I first was introduced to this when I was much younger, I fought this a lot. And then I went, okay, we got to figure some crap out here. We have to look at this proposition and try to examine it on its merits and look at the evidence. And once I sat down and did that, I went, holy crap. This is not just about hurting women, which is clearly that's the whole point, but there's the unintended consequences of hurting men too.
Yeah.
And the benefits do not in any way outweigh the uh, uh, the problems.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't. Men need to understand if you want to make your own lives better, start killing the system you invented,
Yeah.
and not you individually, but that men did. People don't understand that men aren't the enemy when you talk about the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the enemy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
just
think it's good because when we talk about these things, you can see how they right the ship. They can see
yeah.
how they went, oh crap, we did this really badly at some point, and maybe we need to fix it.
Yeah. And it's a shame, just to harp a little more on Prodigy, that Prodigy isn't supposed to count anymore. Is a
Yeah.
real shame because you've got this, if you look at it as metaphor, Dahl, cocky male, assumes he has the right to be captain, you know? And at the end, when he backs off and he realizes Gwen is better, and that is her role. It is
Yeah.
not necessarily his role. That there's metaphorical value there that like I say, I think it's even more than the creators realized they were doing. And it was hardening. Yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
soft power is a
enough
thing.
said about that. Sorry.
Soft power is a real thing.
Mm,
So, yeah. And I think, when we're talking about sexism, I think in a lot of ways, we have to talk about homophobia too,
we do. We do.
because boy, did it take them a long time to bring LGBTQ people into this enlightened universe.
Yeah.
Boy, did it take them a long time.
Yeah. And I believe David Gerald wanted to do that in the first season and they were scared off. I might
Yep.
be wrong about that, but
No, I think that if not the first season, it was very early in the evolution of that show. And it's just one of those things that yeah, they took the lead on some issues, especially in the first series, in the original series.
Yeah.
It's since been debunked that the kiss between Kirk and Uhura was the first interracial kiss
Oh, don't tell me
on the
that.
BB.
Is that true? That's sad.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice thing, but I think it's been debunked. Um, I think there was a kiss in something else, and I can't remember what it is, which preceded it by several years. Um, but anyway, I do think there's a lot of criticism to be had for that. Um, George Takei's defense of Star Trek notwithstanding, um, he was kind of a bit upset. They made the Kelvin timeline Sulu gay
Yeah.
openly, and
Mhm.
he said it doesn't fit the character himself, but and I think he has a right to speak out about that since he originated the character.
Oh, I thought he appreciated it. He did not?
Maybe later he did, but I know originally he said something about it that was kind of unexpected.
Oh, that's
Um,
unfortunate. That's too bad.
uh, but I think it may have been that they made him gay just to make him gay.
Well, I know it was an intentional nod to George Takei. I know it was uh, a positive sort of appreciation of him and an acknowledgement. I know it
Yeah.
was meant to be,
Well,
yeah,
I think he acknowledged the sentiment,
yeah.
but didn't care for the execution.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, that's
So
too bad to hear. That's a shame.
I'm 63. I could be not remembering that properly.
No, you probably are. I'm sure you usually get that stuff right, so I'm sure you do.
That's funny because I'm almost always doubting myself as soon as it comes out of my mouth. Um,
Uh, well, let's talk about race some because you brought up the
oh
interracial
yeah.
kiss. And race is tricky. I remember, I've got to say, one of our very first episodes of Open World Chat,
Uh,
we had Tim Russ on.
yeah.
And I said to him, I said, Star Trek gets all this credit for being so racially progressive, but you had because of Uhura. But
Yeah.
Uhura didn't do a lot. And you had stuff like I Spy going on, where you had
Yeah.
a major African American character who was more involved. And I said, do you think Star Trek gets a little more credit than it deserves? And he shut me down hard.
Well, even Nichelle Nichols said something to that effect. She said, well, somebody told her, Uhura just answers the phone. And she basically said, bullshit. She is part of the senior staff
Yeah.
and they rely on her in lots of episodes.
Well, and that's exactly what Tim said. He was like, this is a bridge officer. And he just, like I say, he shut me down hard. It was great. I think I even put that in the description of the episode on the website. John gets smacked down by Tim Russ.
Well, I do think that's right. I think that uh, I think we get into some trouble in Discovery. I think we get into some trouble in Next Generation. Klingons are all black actors.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, they eventually end up that way. They didn't start that way.
No, they didn't. But after you've got Worf, it's all black actors who are playing Klingons. Now, that's just my appearance. I can't speak for what the black community thinks of that idea.
Hmm.
I can make no pretensions to know what that means to them.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of interesting that from then on they started choosing black actors to portray Klingons.
Yeah.
But the relationship between the Federation and the Klingons has evolved.
Hmm.
It's vastly different than it was in the original series now, and they bounce back and forth. I think realistically, because the civilizations are so different and based on such different ideas,
Yeah.
that you're not going to always have a permanent alliance with the Klingons. that it's not, that you're not going to evolve from one kind of relationship state permanently to another permanent relationship state.
Right.
And so, but anyway, that's just something I want to point out there is that after Worf, almost every actor who portrays a Klingon is an African American.
Yeah, that's pretty
And I
interesting.
don't know what that says. I don't know if that's positive or negative.
I'm not
And
sure
like I
either. I've
said,
thought about that myself. Yeah.
at the risk of being smacked down, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to have him back on.
I tried recently, but it
Yeah.
was before it was right before he appeared on Picard,
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
he didn't even respond.
Yeah. But
But
I think he's one of the most interesting actors to be on the show. Just
I think he would have been if he hadn't already been taken, because he's the only one really other than Leonard Nimoy who just put on being a Vulcan so easily. He just wore it like a jacket.
yeah.
It was so casual. It was like, I'm a Vulcan. He would have been a great new Spock if he hadn't
Yeah. Oh
already
no, I
been
agree
taken. Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. It was a shame because he would have been so much better than the one we
Well,
got. I know everybody loves him, but I don't. Whatever. Sorry.
mainly because he smacked you down.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, I don't want to talk about race though without mentioning Code of Honor. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, which was just weird stereotyping, and talk about failing yourself. That was an embarrassment.
Yep.
Yeah. And one more I want to mention that
Sure.
I realized for the first time. I watched it again recently, and I saw this thing and my heart sank. And that's when I watched the Omega Glory again, which, it's got the classic "We the People" speech from Kirk. And I
E
think
plebista.
yeah, I've always thought it was actually a pretty good episode. I like the story, you know? But then when you get right down to it, where it's the Asiatic culture and they say versus the white culture,
Yeah.
Americans are a white culture in
That's just
Omega Glory.
empirically wrong.
It's empirically wrong, and that one hurts because the episode meant well, but it couldn't
Yes.
see past its own.
Yeah, they didn't think it through.
They didn't think it through. They didn't think it through. And so that one
Yeah.
hurt. But anyways,
Um, yeah, and it's pretty jingoistic, especially given the Vietnam War at the
yeah, I could
time.
kind of look past that because I know what they were going for. But yeah, they just missed the race thing completely.
Yep, I think so. I think they just kind of assumed, oh, well, we're not going to worry about that right now.
But that was
So,
Roddenberry too.
yep, it sure was.
That was one of his episodes.
Yeah. Let's talk about I don't know if this is Star Trek failing itself, but you got to talk about Benjamin Sisko.
Yeah,
And I think
well,
and I think you got to talk about Benjamin Sisko in a couple of different dimensions.
I think so too.
And I think the first one's going to be religion. The way Roddenberry envisioned the post warp technology world was that we had abandoned this uh, mythology that
Yes.
we know that we no longer we understand this is not reality, that
Yeah.
it's fiction, that it's a way which has evolved to that it's evolved to manipulate society. And there's two things here. I think uh, that Deep Space Nine deals with this. I think one of the interesting things that Deep Space Nine deals with, and when you talk about religion, is it's it's not um, it's not historically or empirically accurate to uh, consider religion a complete failure without any positive effect on society.
Hmm.
I think religion, although I think it's been the big exception, I think religion has been used to drive society in good direction. And I think the way to look at that is look at Gandhi.
Yeah.
I think Gandhi is an example that you don't have that kind of moral leadership without some kind of religious aspect to it. And he did not use that religious aspect to manipulate people in a positive way. He used it to, clearly. Uh, Mahatma Gandhi knew it would be necessary to manipulate the British public and the British political system, but he did not do it in a way which materially damaged Britain in a direct way. It wasn't uh, Gandhi asking for or insisting on independence um, that hurt the British economy with the loss of India. It was the British policy toward India that hurt Britain
Hmm.
in the long run. And without Gandhi's experience with both Hindu and Muslim tradition, I don't think we get the response you did. And as a direct descendant of Gandhi, I don't think the civil rights movement gets the kind of play it got and the kind of response it got from the general public without religious influence there either.
Well, I think
So
that's fair. Yeah.
I do like that Deep Space Nine kind of tries to look at that to some degree in a more balanced way toward religion, but boy, does it also really emphasizes the bad effects of believing in religion too much.
It
But when you look
does.
at what does Deep Space Nine do in terms of the original conception of the Federation is it says that, maybe religion is more important than people let it, hope it would be.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the religion in Deep Space Nine, they would push it so far. And
Yeah.
just at the last possible moment, they would remind us these are wormhole aliens.
Yeah.
Uh, they push it so far. And at the end, I don't even know how much that works, but
Yeah,
they
no, it
do.
doesn't.
Yeah. Because when you look at the original series, the Roddenberry Vision, I mean, you had Who Mourns for Adonis, you had the apple.
Right.
And Who Mourns for Adonis, yes, had the line about we find the one God quite sufficient or whatever Kirk says, but that was clearly shoehorned in by the censors. And behind
Yeah.
the scenes, there's some question who even put that in there. And Roddenberry was apparently furious.
Yeah.
So that message is there that, we're going to carry morality. Eventually, we won't need the religion for the
Yeah,
moral.
that it'll be based on empathy,
That
not
it'll be based on empathy, that it'll be based on reason, even.
well, and the other thing is, I think, and boy, their Star Trek is in many ways a legacy of the, we mentioned Enlightenment philosophy in a previous episode. Star Trek, in many, many ways, is a product of the Enlightenment philosophy.
Yeah.
The idea that society is constantly moving toward better conditions. The
Yeah.
idea that religious belief uh, falls away to reason. It's what Benjamin Franklin said, and it's kind of funny to watch people who are evangelical Christians embrace this idea. They don't understand what Ben Franklin was saying when he said to see by faith is to close the eyes of reason.
Hmm.
They take that as a positive statement. No, it's not a positive statement for religion. That's the thing is when the founders, people say, well, it was a religious based government. No, the founders rejected that because if they wanted the political system to be based on religion, it would have been covered up in the Constitution. I mean, Constitution would have been covered up with religion and how religion is the best way to form your government. And it wasn't. So it
Yeah.
was rejected. But they believed that rights came from reason and reason came from birth.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
they established a system, and this was an explicit kind of idea that Jefferson pushed was that you don't need God to give you rights.
Right.
That rights come from your ability to reason with the environment and come up with conclusions that match natural law.
Which was very Roddenberry.
But yeah, that's totally Roddenberry.
That's very Roddenberry. That's where he was coming from with so much of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so um, I do think that that's one of the big ways that Star Trek fails itself when you look at Roddenberry's vision as the original structure for the show.
Yeah.
Um, I was trying to think if there's any other thing we need to talk about with religion and
Well, there's more we need to talk about with Cisco.
oh,
That's,
there's definitely more we need to talk about with Cisco.
I mean,
Cisco, as I said in previous episodes, he's a straight up criminal and a war criminal in some of these episodes.
let's talk war crimes in Cisco for sure. Let's talk, well, what was the episode I was just talking about for the uniform, which you've brought
Yeah.
up quite a bit. Let's talk about it. That's,
Well, the whole thing is this. Yeah, he's a straight up war criminal. And the thing is, when you look at for the uniform, the reason he does it is a complete violation of Starfleet ethics and Starfleet regulation.
yeah.
He takes something completely personal and makes it his official policy.
I
He
think
is
it's a
so
failure.
offended. He is so offended that somebody would actually have the audacity to question Starfleet that it becomes personal.
Yeah.
And so
It's
he
a
turns a little
failure of
bit,
Star Trek ethics. It's a failure of ethics in so many contexts. Ugh, it's brutal.
yeah. Um, and so, and honestly, I think it's out of character for him.
I agree.
I think it's out of character for Cisco to behave this way.
Yeah.
I think this was whoever wrote the episode, if it's Ronald Moore or Berman or whoever it is, I think they wrote this episode going, screw Gene Roddenberry.
Huh.
These captains are humans and they're weak and they have fallibility. But, and I understand that pushing that is really important because these are just human decision makers under a great deal of stress and under circumstances of extreme uncertainty. And so they're going to make mistakes, but you don't violate the kind of character that you developed in that character doing it.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
His decision to take these actions should be based on the character. And I don't think Cisco makes this decision unless the writers make that decision.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not just a betrayal of the principles of Star Trek. I think it's a betrayal of Captain Cisco.
I agree. I really do. Um, Cisco's problematic, but he shouldn't be that problematic.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy.
Well, while we're talking about Cisco, then we obviously have to talk about In the Pale Moonlight, which I actually found, when the more I thought about it, a little more nuanced than I originally thought. What do you think, Mark?
Well, this is the episode where I really think he's a straight up villain. And the reason why is he is so desperate, and Michael Eddington has just foiled him at every possible turn that, again, this goes directly into making the personal Starfleet policy.
Yeah.
And and I mean, so Michael Eddington has already poisoned the atmosphere of other places of Cardassian colonists that have taken over the planets that belong to the Maquis. So he's really trying to root out the Cardassians, but he's violated uh, Starfleet agreement with the Cardassians to turn these worlds over. And when Eddington has him backed into a corner, Sisko does the exact same thing and turns into the exact same monster that Eddington is. Eddington really is a monster in this episode.
Hmm.
He is again working solely on his own personal interests, and it's become a vendetta with Starfleet. And so has the admiral that was Sisko's lifelong friend. They went through the academy together. And it so enrages Sisko that all rational thinking has gone out of his head.
Yeah.
And he doesn't consider any other alternative to poisoning the planet that he poisons. And that's a straight up war criminal. He is a straight up war criminal. And I think another way you could, I think this is a weaker case, but I think you can look at Captain Janeway in destroying the Borg transwarp corridor.
Hmm. Oh, that's
I mean,
interesting.
she knows this is going to be genocide. Now, of course, they retcon in that and make it not genocide for the Borg, but she knows if she destroys this transwarp corridor, it's genocide. They're done. They're toast. Species, whatever it is 9472 is going to wipe them out.
Right.
And so I think that's arguably a war criminal too. But Cisco abandons all idea of any kind of rationality here and just goes for all out, straight up, the dish best served cold revenge.
Hmm.
And he fails to serve Starfleet's needs. The end does not just, I mean, the means does not justify the end,
Yeah.
or the other way around. Um, and so he's a problem. Sisko's a problem. However, having said that, I still think Sisko is a great character in Star Trek because the acting job and just the acting that he does, but also the character is not afraid to take on the great moral questions you're going to run into time and time and time again when you pursue these galaxy-wide policies.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have a captain like Sisko who is flawed, who does show that these people aren't gods, they're not heroes, they're humans, and they're going to react poorly, and they're going to make bad decisions, and they're going to have to deal with the consequences.
Here's where I have come around on In the Pale Moonlight, though.
Yeah.
Um, it's sort of like, to me, it has become this because I had such a visceral reaction when I saw it, I couldn't see straight. But it's not unlike those challenges of the Prime Directive. Cisco did not set up this whole assassination. He didn't do it. Garrick did.
Yep.
When Cisco finds out Garrick is pissed off, and Cisco finds out he's pissed off at Garrick, but then he
Yeah.
goes back, he thinks about it, and he says, I can live with it. So is this just a human reaction?
No,
Given the
Garrick.
chance, would if it had come down to Cisco making that decision, would Cisco have made that decision or not? And that's an open question, I think, left by In the Pale Moonlight, which is kind of interesting. He didn't make the decision, but would he have? He can live with it, but would he have pulled the trigger himself?
Well,
And
here's the
that makes
problem.
it kind of interesting.
Garrick points out why Cisco is just rationalizing. And
Yeah,
he calls him out completely directly and just wipes out any argument that, well, would I have done this or not? Of course he would have, because he knew what Garrick was going to do. That's the whole reason why he asked for Garrick's help, was to give him plausible deniability.
right.
And
Well,
that way, that
that's
way, if he got caught, it was, oh, well, that was Garrick.
I think that's part of the moral question it lays out. And so I give it a little more room because it's there to make us think.
Well,
Um,
I think it's a writing thing, and it's
mhm.
just there to make a point. But I think Garrick's right. I think Garrick says you knew what was going to happen. You knew I was going to do something like this. That's why you ask me to help.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why because you thought, well, I can't do this by myself. And if this goes south, then I can always blame Garrick. Uh, and I can do that with plausible deniability because I just asked him to help me get this forgery thing. He knew Garrick wasn't going to stop. He knew Garrick was going to do exactly what needed to be done, no matter how it was done. He had to do it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're
And
probably right. But
Garrick calls him out. Garrick calls him out,
yeah.
and I think Garrick's right. You knew I had the capability to make this happen, and you didn't think about how I was going to do it because it was convenient not to think about that.
Yeah.
So I think Cisco really betrays Star Trek, betrays his character, betrays everything with this thing. And I mean, there's no two ways around it. Guy's a straight up war criminal.
Well, definitely with the other episode. This one, I think when you look at them together, yeah, you can't get around it. But
You can't
I
get around
do
it.
appreciate some of the moral questioning.
Oh no, there's definitely
Mhm.
ambiguity here. There's definitely the whole thing is that what puts this in context is the Dominion is an existential threat.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you don't do this, maybe the Federation disappears. And
Yeah.
so now this is a lovely transition to what I think is one of the biggest ones, the second biggest betrayal of Star Trek, of betrayal of itself, is Section 31.
Yeah. Yeah. I have one that's as big, but let's talk about Section 31 for a minute first.
Section 31 demonstrates that for story purposes, the idea of an enlightenment, we've solved all our problems, we're not going to uh, reduce ourselves to doing immoral war crime, horrible behavior just to save our democracy. That's exploded by Section 31.
Uh-huh.
And this is something that you deal with a lot in political philosophy. Um, if you have a system which is nominally as beneficial for the people who live under that system, not necessarily for people who live in other systems, like democracy, do you is it okay to do anything you possibly can to stop, I
Yeah.
mean, to maintain that system?
I think it breaks Star Trek. I think they
I think
broke
it does
Star
too.
Trek there.
Yeah, I think it breaks Star Trek.
Yeah.
I think it breaks Star Trek worse than the Prime Directive.
I think one of the things I appreciate about the what was actually a fairly boring season, I think it was season two of Discovery, which it really engages with them, that it was a bit of an answer to that
Yeah.
casting them as villains. So I appreciate that. Of course, then you get the movie, which why did they? I don't know. Yes, but you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's the number one that we have to talk about.
I just think that's a problem. That's a problem because you know you postulate this enlightened society which doesn't have to do this kind of stuff anymore and doesn't have to you know it's solved social economic political inequity and so now we can go on to doing other things like exploring the known galaxy
Yeah.
without bringing those prejudices to other things.
Yeah.
And I think when you say, well, to do that, to do all this stuff, we had to have this completely unchecked by democracy. Uh, and, you know, this is a model for the CIA and for intelligence organizations. But here's
Sure.
the thing, the CIA is not unchecked. It's done some terribly bad stuff,
Yeah.
but the CIA over its history has been checked. Its power has been reined in from
Oh,
time to time.
Carter kicked the shit out of it.
Oh, good God. Uh, you know, basically he said, all right, show it all, give us everything. And, you know, we talked a lot about conspiracy theory when we talked about the political the effect of aliens on the international system, one of the things that I forgot to point out was, oh, now I've lost my train of thought. I just move on because we're running out of
All
time.
right. Yeah, well,
But
Section 31 breaks Star Trek and the way other series, even the second Kelvin universe movie Into Darkness, casting them clearly as bad guys, Discovery class casting them clearly as bad guys, the movie being stupid. I think it gets repudiated for the most part, which I appreciate. Star Trek kind of saves itself a little bit,
yeah,
but I
well,
don't think it's necessarily. Well, I think it's tied for the most egregious, honestly.
yeah,
I think you've also got the situation in, and I hate to say this, but Strange New Worlds, you know,
okay,
with Mabanga, where and
yeah,
under the cloak of war, where he kills the former Klingon general, who was the butcher. I'm looking at it now, the butcher of Jagal,
right,
and he defected to the Federation, became kind of a celebrity peace preacher, and Mabanga's having none of it, and Mabanga just kills him.
yeah,
And that, they talk about that. They go back to it. It's this interesting character thing, but it's a failure. It's a big one.
yeah. Of course it is, and it's for the same reason why Cisco fails. He took a personal situation and made it official Starfleet policy.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it for sure.
So this is a problem. When you are an officer in something like Starfleet, one of the most important things you have to learn is you can't make things personal. You can't do it. No matter what you would do in this situation, if you make it personal, you run the risk of putting your own uh, interests at risk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think it's a terrible idea. There are instances, I think, where you would where doing that would be a good idea. And the thing that occurs to me is the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, where it took one captain to go, yeah, y'all have to knock this crap off right now. And that's the only thing that stopped it.
Yeah.
And, he put a helicopter between the guys who were killing civilians and the civilians.
Yeah.
Uh, I have to shout out to the guy. Have you seen the thing about the Air Force captain?
Which I'm not sure what you're referring
There's an
to.
Air Force captain this week who, an active duty Air Force captain who stood on the Capitol steps with a sign that said, impeach, convict, remove President Donald Trump,
No.
arrested on the spot.
Oh, I bet. Oh my God.
But this is what a hero looks like.
Yeah.
He has not, he has not, see, this is the difference between him and Cisco. He did something that he knew would have instantaneous, far-ranging negative consequences for himself.
Yeah.
But what's he doing? That's the most important thing a member of the services can do. He's upholding his oath to defend the Constitution from enemies foreign and domestic.
Yeah. That's the oath.
And later, and it may be a generation later, he will have a commendation in his record for doing this, and they will expunge his military record for it.
I agree.
Because this is a guy who understands that sometimes to do the right thing, you have to take your personal feelings and make them policy. And there's a big difference between what he did and what Cisco does and what lots of characters do. There's plenty of evidence of this in Star Trek.
Yeah.
This guy made the personal policy, but he did it for the right reasons.
Sometimes the needs of the many do outweigh the needs of the
That's
one, even
correct.
though I don't even like mentioning that without also mentioning that in Star Trek 3 we had the reverse.
Yeah.
And they said that because sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. And I appreciate that they added that in there because sometimes self-sacrifice for someone you love is important. But in general, that general philosophy of the needs of the many is meaningful.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and there's a constant push and pull in any society between that. And people, I love it when conservatives say, "Well, we're not a system which worries about the collective." And then I always hit them with the John Adams quote, which I'm going to look up now. Um, so John Adams, of course, was one of the most conservative founders.
Yeah, he sounded like such a dick too. Oh my God.
I like this scene in the HBO series where Franklin sends him home because he's just far too Puritan to do what has to be done to get France on the side of the war.
Well, and the way he would keep a log of how much he condescended to all the other founding fathers, and
Right.
oh my God, what a dick.
Yeah, the only person I think who had more of an ego was
Oh, I'm curious to
uh
hear who you're going to come up with here. Oh, who is
what
it?
was the other? Oh, gosh, who was I going to say?
I don't know. I'm really dying to
I'm
know
trying to
too.
think of who it was. It's not Jefferson. It's not Madison. It's gone out of my head. Stupid age.
Ah, yeah,
Um,
it happens. Well,
I think the least egotistical of the founders, thank God, was Jefferson. Oh, it was Washington.
it was Washington. It was
Washington.
Washington.
I
Yeah.
mean, that guy, his humility and his relationship with power is it's fundamental to why we have a civil society now.
I was going to say Jefferson is kind of full of himself, but
Oh,
Washington.
Jefferson, maybe I was going to say Jefferson because Jefferson is pretty full of himself. Hold on,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the exact um, uh, John Adams quote about the purpose of government. So just to recap here, conservatives often say that, America's different because they're for the individual and the government is set up to serve the individual. And boy, this quote from Adams is like, no, I don't think so. Where is it here? Oh, yeah, here it is. Government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, not individuals, for the people here. He doesn't say that part. That's my comment.
Hmm.
And not for the profit, honor, or private interest of any one man, family, or class of men. Don't tell me the founders weren't interested in the collective. They absolutely were. They didn't believe what modern conservatives believe is that the collective should never be considered.
Yeah.
They would think that's just absolutely nuts, especially when you talk about the relationship between society and government. This bullshit, well, the difference between us and communism and fascism is they're collective and we aren't.
Yeah.
Stop talking about Ayn Rand. She was an idiot.
Yeah. And a hypocrite.
Oh, that too, but just empirically wrong about how society works. And not just a little bit empirically wrong, a lot. Multiple gunman Kennedy conspiracy theorist wrong. But yeah, I think Section 31 is a bad breaking of Star Trek. I think
Yeah.
it's not good.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we should probably wrap up. I think ending with Section 31 was probably just the right way to do it.
Yep.
Star Trek, we're both big fans, a great thing, a great force for good. But like any other human institution, it's imperfect.
Well, yeah, I have to quote James Baldwin here
Hmm.
about I'm gonna not gonna quote him, I'm gonna paraphrase him. He said about the United States, he said, "I love my country more than any other country on the planet, uh, which means that I reserve the right to criticize it as harshly as possible."
Right? That's how we
That's what I
feel
feel
about
about
Trump.
Star Trek.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
right, folks. We'll see you next time with something cool. I don't know what.
Yeah, or at least something we can mildly annoy you with.
Yeah, there you go. Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.